It is National Adoption Month, and today we are turning our focus to the legal side of the heartwarming journey that is adoption. I'm happy to welcome back attorney Tasha Kotz, founder of the law office of Tashs Jean Kotz. Tasha, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Could you provide an overview of the legal steps for adoption?
Sure. So adoption and the legal steps for adoption are going to vary amongst couples, whether a couple is married, whether a couple is not married, and there are different procedural steps in moving forward in that process.
Okay, so as far as someone, married versus non-married, what are the biggest differences?
Sure, so a couple who is not married, they'd have a couple more hoops that they have to jump through. We do something that's called a home study. A neutral person comes in, checks out this family's home to ensure that these children are safe. We do background checks, a bunch of different home study checks, and a whole checklist full of things that we figure out whether these children are safe. Because when couples are not married and they adopt a child, who's going to have those custodial rights in the event that they separate, versus if a couple's married, they would be able to jointly fight over those custodial rights.
Okay, so if a couple is not married, they both have to kind of go through this process.
Correct.
So
yes.
It's like a double time thing.
Correct.
So now, are there any differences, with married couples or individuals who want to get married versus LGBTQ same-sex couples or individuals?
Luckily in South Carolina, we don't have that issue. So whether you are part of the LGBTQ community, whether you are a same-sex couple, opposite-sex couple, we don't have any issues that would put any impediments against that adoption process.
Okay, so the custodial rights are pretty equal.
Correct, yes.
And now what is the, for let's say a married couple, what is the kind of steps for the custodial rights process?
Sure. So in regard to adopting a child, it's generally a bio parent with a step parent. So when we have the process of an adoption, we are essentially terminating one biological parent's rights. So inevitably what happens is the biological parent and the step parent will petition the court to be able to adopt and terminate the other biological parent's rights.
Okay.
So in that regard, the biological parent is entitled to notice of the adoption. In some cases, that biological parent consents. In other cases, it becomes litigious. But then we would go forward in whatever avenue that we need to go forward in that adoption process.
Okay, and I know that adoption laws vary, state to state. Is there anything unique about the South Carolina adoption laws?
Sure, I can't attest to other state laws, but one thing I find interesting, at least in South Carolina, is we have something called the Responsible Father Registry. Okay. And a lot of people don't know about this registry, especially with men. But if there's ever a time that an unmarried man and woman have intercourse that could result in the child, that man is actually responsible for putting himself on this database called the Responsible Father Registry.
Okay, and so what does that do for him?
Sure, so what that does is, as an attorney, if I'm going through the adoption process, I am required to search that registry to see if that father's name is listed as a potential father for that child.
Okay, and so if he's not on that database, he has no...
Correct, he's got essentially no rights, but he's also not entitled to notice of the adoption process.
Oh, wow, that is fascinating.
Yes, it's very interesting. So I'm not sure if other states do it, but I find it very interesting that South Carolina does do it, and it's an important thing for men to know so that they have that notice.
Absolutely, I've never heard of anything like that. So yeah, it definitely needs to be talked about more.
That's right.
And now, what role does an adoption attorney play in the whole adoption process?
Sure, so besides the procedural things, filing the paperwork, doing all of those things, we also have to have what's called a guardian ad litem, and those people are also attorneys as well. Okay. And essentially that guardian ad litem attorney is the child's attorney. So that guardian ad litem will do her or his own investigation to ensure that this adoption is in the best interest of this child.
Okay, and so what exactly are the laws put in place and the rights to protect the child?
So, fortunately, things that we want to look at is a number of factors, but do these parents have the financial means to be able to provide for this child? Does this child feel like an integrated part of this family? Does this child want to be adopted by this family? There's a number of factors that go into it, but it's the guardian, the attorney who is the guardian, it's their responsibility to ensure that this child meets all of those, or at least a majority of those factors.
Wow. Well, Tasha, this was an enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for joining me
so
today.
Much.
For our viewers, if they want to learn more about the registry or find more information about you, where can they find you?
Sure. I'm easily accessible on social media outlets, but as well as my website, the law office of Tashs Jean Kotz, if you have any other questions.
Wonderful, Tasha. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're back after this.